Remembering Defining Moments by Theam of Chatswood, 2067. Narrated by Janine Penfold. The hitting of cymbals with chants and rites recital kept us all awake till the early hours of the morning, with some broken sleep in between. This is my experience of mourning the dead when I was a child. I used to ask myself then, why do the living have to suffer when someone is dead? What difference does it make? Supposedly just to adhere to one's beliefs and traditions that have been passed down over generations without question. On the other side of the continent, when I was an adult, I attended a church funeral without the hitting of cymbals and chants. Instead, what was left ringing in my ears after this service 16 years ago were the words of the funeral celebrant. Birth is the beginning, life the journey, and death the destination. How profound. I'll do just that and make my journey worthwhile. Do our perceptions and understanding change with age? My answer to this is not so much with age, but rather with life experiences as well as circumstances. Asian cultures and societies have expectations which are stereotyped, whilst in the Western culture there is a lot more liberty and choice. Coming from a traditional Chinese family which has its beliefs embedded over centuries, my life was mapped out by my parents. I have to be married at a certain age, have children by a certain age, and so on. I refused to follow this tradition and so emigrated to Australia, where I enjoy independence and freedom of choice. Non-conformity is not a crime, provided the behaviour is not illegal. You can live your life however you choose to, so long as it suits and does not harm another living creature. By adopting this new perspective, my horizons expanded and my journey was enriched. Having spent my first 27 years with my mother, I could see why she was not contented and happy, and I said to myself, I do not want to end up in the same situation as her. Her life revolved around her children, and she depended on them for happiness. She was living in their pockets. With 7 children, she was banking on the hope that they would look after her during her old age. She experienced poverty when she was a young girl and was deprived of all the opportunities which we take as rights nowadays. Schooling was out of the question, and she, together with my dad, fled their war-torn country by boat. They had a harrowing journey at sea, always in fear of pirates and whether they would ever be able to put their foot on land again. Thank their lucky star, they arrived safely in Malaysia. I admire their tenacity and anyone who has been through the same journey in search of a better life. Their courage to pull themselves out of poverty, coupled with a harrowing boat journey, became my parents' defining moments. Through his life journey, my dad realised that education makes a whole world of difference. Having only 3 months of schooling, he kept on honing on us that education is the only asset he could give us. He would do anything to support us to gain knowledge, as he believed, and admirably so, that knowledge is power. Remembering my dad's advice that knowledge is power, the first thing which I did when I emigrated to Australia in the early 80s was to enrol in a degree course. I was disheartened when being told that all applications for university were officially closed. However, I managed to get around the problem by paying a late fee. I struggled during my first year at university because I had to totally readjust my life to suit into a whole new world. Not only did I have to assimilate, but also to train my brain back to study mode, which I had stopped for nearly 7 years. Not wanting to end up in the same situation as my mum, I knew I had to build up and find some interests so that when I retired, I would not have to depend on my family for social stimulations. One day when I was on annual leave, I walked into a multicultural centre and it happened to be their open day. That day also became my open day. I realised I could never be bored when it's time for me to hang up my boots. All that is required of me is to venture out of my comfort zone, be involved with the community activities, learn as much as I can by participating in these activities, and contribute to the community in return. Not long after, I joined the seniors group activities in this centre for 1 day a week. Gradually, I became more involved with the centre as a volunteer by contributing the skill set I acquired through education. Volunteering has crafted many defining moments for me. Being an introvert, I was unable to overcome my shyness until after I became a volunteer. Armed with the determination to break this barrier, I stood up with my hands shaking, holding the microphone, and started singing to the seniors with eyes looking away from 20 or more pairs of eyes staring at me. That nervous voice of mine still resounds clearly in my head. A clap of hands followed, and though weak, was all the assurance and encouragement for me to break open my shell. From that day onwards, my self-consciousness began to wane, whilst my confidence improved. Things which I would love to try but would never dare to before, I can now face the challenge. These days, in my senior age, I have a dare to be different attitude. If someone from a different culture makes this remark, "Why do you give offerings to the dead, knowing that they are not going to surface to eat your rice?" I'll have this in reply: "They will, when they come to smell your flowers." The end.